Pakistan plays an increasingly important role in the world's geopolitical dynamics as the only predominantly Muslim country with nuclear weapons. But with the new government faced with an economy in crisis, can the nuclear-powered state overcome its internal challenges? The relations with its neighbor India are at yet another low, but after 4 wars in 7 decades, they've taken some confidence-building measures, but are they ready to settle their differences? Pakistan is closer than ever to its neighbor China. Islamabad and Beijing have started a $62 billion bilateral agreement as part of China's Global Belt and Road Initiative. Both countries deny any military aspect to their flourishing ties, but how is this relationship impacting Pakistan's other important relationship? That's with the United States. President Trump first blasted Islamabad but then asked Pakistan for help to find peace in Afghanistan. But after decades of US failure and an imminent troop withdrawal, can and will Pakistan take over regional security? I'm Osama bin Javed in Islamabad. Pakistan's geopolitical strategic location gives it a lot of opportunities but also challenges. Is Pakistan's new leadership meeting them? We will find out as the President of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Arif Alvi, talks to Al Jazeera. Mr. Arif Alvi, the President of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera. This is a new journey that you've embarked upon, a journey with the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, with you as the head of state, a people's man in the presidency. The world is wanting to know, what is this new Pakistan that you are going to create?
I think what has happened with my coming into the presidency is that we've brought people's ideas, we've brought the feeling of the people of Pakistan to this office, and so has the Prime Minister of this country brought the feelings of Pakistan to his office. The urgency, the need for urgent change in Pakistan has been, is very important. I think what we need to do in Pakistan is whatever changes we promised to speed them up, and with the new realities which we saw when we have come into government, which we saw, to face them, to modify our direction, to improve our directions, to give stability to Pakistan, to fulfill the commitment which the government, the Constitution of Pakistan makes with its people.
Let's talk about the change in progress that your party has been promising and has been elected upon. You embarked upon a very ambitious 100-day plan, which many thought was over-promising. And in the last 100 days, the economy is not in tremendous shape. There has been thousands of jobs which have been lost. The indicators at the National Assembly in terms of legislature haven't really moved a lot. So you talk about this progress, but how confident are you that given the 100 days, you haven't been able to achieve as much as you hoped that you would?
I may not agree with you, because the 100 days were relatively a selection of direction. In 100 days, you won't build a dam, but in 100 days, you will say that this such and such dam has to be built. In 100 days, you will not be able to bring out total legislation, because legislation is not a project which is, bills cannot be written in 100 days and passed in the assembly. In 100 days, a number of economic policies had to be handled. In 100 days, we were just looking at the condition of the economy, which was artificially, in fact, if to lay people, the indicator, for example, has been the dollar-rupee parity, or the whatever rate it was available at. But in reality, it was much worse. In reality, what was happening, because of the high rupee dollar parity, our exports were dwindling. A lot of things were happening. So I think in the 3 months or in the 4 months since my government has taken over, I think they're coming to, the whole thing is coming to terms with the reality. What was really happening, and what was layered over it, and what people thought was happening and what was not actually happening. So what is happening is corruption. There is a big message going on that you can't take money out of Pakistan in an informal manner, which is illegal. There are a lot of illegalities. You mentioned that in Karachi, for example, people are out of a job. Why? Because illegal structures are being demolished. But why did illegal structures come up? Because for the last 50 years, you were free to encroach on government land or encroach on any land on the road and build structures, and that became the law, because law is what people should see on the street rather than law which is on paper. So the law on the street was that you can do a lot of illegalities and run away with it. So one day reality check had to be done.
That was exactly what I was going to come towards, and you highlighted that now it is the time for a reality check, that you've come into power and you've realized the situation was not as you expected it was. Wouldn't it have been better to provide alternatives first before the demolition?
Let me surprise you. I think what has been done as far as illegal structures, etc. is concerned is only 5% of what is possible. So there's still 95 steps to go. So after 5 steps, I think a reality check again with what we are doing and providing alternate assessment of things, a humanitarian part is important. But first the message has to go out that this Naya Pakistan cannot accept illegal activities or illegal structures anywhere.
This is the government which has gone after major leaders across the political spectrum, and that has been the qualm of the opposition, saying that this is selective justice. It accuses your government of carrying out vendettas against political opponents, using the National Accountability Bureau as a tool. How do you counter that narrative when your leaders aren't arrested and their leaders are arrested and they come out on the streets and say that they are being victimized?
The NAB law is very specific. It is political influence in corruption, about politically influenced people. Who has been in government? The majority have been other parties than the present Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Therefore, for it to be fair, it has to question the NAB law, and NAB has to question those who have been in government. But the figures are shocking as far as the corruption, the way the corruption has been done. And I feel I'm surprised by the fact that some of the people are still defending what the corrupt practices are.
Let's talk about Arif Alvi as the President of Pakistan. You are the civilian commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But this role is considered to be a ceremonial one. What is going to be different in Naya Pakistan that you will bring?
It's a role of leadership, identifying with causes. I have taken up an initiative which is called Pakistan Presidential Initiative on Artificial Intelligence. I believe that the world is changing very fast. I believe that an Internet of Things is just around the corner. Internet of Industrial Things is just around the corner. People have described it as the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is around the corner. And I want Pakistan to be there in the beginning. Jump onto the train right now. Because the economy, as is being predicted of the 4th Industrial Revolution, is going to be estimated as $3.5 trillion by 2023. And I don't want Pakistan to miss the boat. Pakistan is looking for, this government has promised jobs, promised houses, and all that can happen only when Pakistan starts walking with the pace of the world rather than a slow march behind the world.
So what does this mean? Does a proactive Arif Alvi as a president mean Pakistan is going back towards a presidential system of governance?
No, no. I believe that the president should be supporting all the good causes. I believe that the laws of inheritance are poor in Pakistan, present-day Pakistan. I believe that what Islam, the space that my religion provides to women, is not being given by the culture of our people. So I believe to increase that space within the realms of the religion, women need employment, women need public spaces in public to be able to move around. I think that is not at the level which we want to. We want women in leadership positions. Water conservation, for example, is a very important thing Pakistan is faced with. Global warming. There are presidents in the world who deny global warming. Are you aware of them? This president,
I think we all are.
This president does not deny global warming. He wants to prepare his country to face it.
Let's move towards that president that you just mentioned. The relationship between your country and the government that you represent with the president you just mentioned is not on the best of terms. In fact, let me read out the CIA's assessment for 2018 by the Director of National Intelligence, Daniel Coates. And quote, Pakistan will continue to threaten US interests by deploying new nuclear weapons capabilities, maintaining ties to militants, restricting counterterrorism cooperation, drawing closer to China, militant groups supported by Islamabad will continue to take advantage of safe haven in Pakistan to plan and conduct attacks in India and Afghanistan, including against US interests. So you have this...
What a poor narrative. You know,
this is the narrative you're against.
This narrative is being used or has been used historically against any country against which any superpower would have wanted to do aggression.
So what will you do to counter
it? Look at the fact that a responsible nuclear state like Pakistan, where Pakistan did not develop its nuclear weapons, India exploded a nuclear device in '74. Then Pakistan ensured its own security by developing the enrichment of uranium and then developing a nuclear device. Then India jumped in and exploded nuclear devices in 1998, and Pakistan did it afterwards. What irresponsibility is there? Does not Pakistan have the security in need for securing itself? Does the US and only the other countries have the right to develop weapons which can destroy the world 500 times over? Imagine the logic. And then any superpower can address Pakistan and say, no, you don't have the right to defend yourself. We have the right to defend ourselves. I think Pakistan has been a very responsible nuclear state, but at the same time, when you mention the fact about terrorism around, we have faced terrorism, and let me make a statement which is a very important statement, and going through your challenge, the Pakistan Army and the Pakistan Armed Forces are the most experienced in the world. The world should have listened to them. The world should have learned from them. The world can still learn from them. They have resisted terrorism, have stopped terrorism on our borders, and west of our borders, you see there is total chaos and turmoil. And I hold many powers responsible for that. Look at Afghanistan, look at Syria. Only a few days ago, Mr. Trump quoted somebody and said that it was not the business of the United States to be doing regime changes in areas like these. Now, once it has been said, what is the responsibility in the future of those countries? Those who think it was not their right to come in and do it, and today they are ready to accept it, shouldn't we be talking about war reparations, humanitarian reparations in those areas? And the figure was on human life has been very aptly selected in the Lockerbie disaster. You know, it's about $6.25 million per personal life. How many? Hundreds of thousands of people have died in the region. And Pakistan has suffered. Pakistan had at the time 3.5 million Afghan refugees. Even today Pakistan has 2.5 million Afghan refugees. Have you heard us shouting about it? Have you heard us complaining about it? Many countries in the world are not ready to accept 100 refugees. There are walls being built up to restrict everybody around. The best way in the world to discourage immigration is a new philosophy where every human life should be considered of the same worth. Not the lives of my country are not more important than lives of others.
So before I come to the nuclear program, so on this issue of the Trump administration and its very clear disliking for Pakistan, what is Pakistan going to do to try and change that? Is Pakistan going to be talking to the Trump administration? Are you talking to them right now? And the narrative that is leveled against Pakistan, whether it comes to Mumbai attacks, Osama bin Laden being found in Pakistan, the issue of support for the Taliban from various circles in Pakistan, across the border in Afghanistan, that is the narrative that exists. You can't deny that.
No.
What are you going to do?
The narrative may exist, but it is an untrue narrative. Let me tell you, we've lost 70,000 people in the war on terrorism. Should we start blaming everybody else around? I am sure what is happening in Balochistan and what's happening elsewhere, India has had a hand in it. So Pakistan has suffered from the same terrorism. So what Pakistan has suffered, Pakistan has lost so many lives. So when India has picked up that bogey and has jumped onto that bandwagon to justify its atrocities in Kashmir also, I make a statement and I ask that Pakistan has made a major effort to try and curb terrorism within itself, and it has overflowed our borders. We have been unable to prevent that. But imagine today the world is saying that there must be a peaceful solution to Afghanistan. You must have talks with Taliban. The US forces are being withdrawn in desperation because a solution is not visible right now with force, and Pakistan is in good communication with the United States on these issues. But we want a relationship based on dignity, on principles of non-interference. I think that's the most important factor we'd like to look. Have peace within the neighbors. You mentioned the fact that Pakistan wants good relations with China. What is evil about it? I think it's been Pakistan has the right to have good relations with a friend which has been a friend almost forever in the last 40-45 years. It's a very strongly progressing and developing country, and the CPEC corridor is a good example of relationships between Pakistan and China.
Right.
We want peaceful relations with India also.
That was exactly my point, that now that you say, and there has been steps that this government has taken. It's opened a border for Sikh pilgrims, but it hasn't had much way in terms of diplomatic developments with the Indian government. Is Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf going to be the government which solves the Kashmir issue and has normalized ties with India?
We would like to, but Kashmir needs a solution. Achha, what has happened is after the 74 Shimla Accord, Indian government has been saying that this is a bilateral issue. Now, when you say this is a bilateral issue, let's come and talk. We won't talk. Under one or the other excuse, we have not talked. So, India cannot ignore it. The struggle in Kashmir is totally indigenous. The struggle in Kashmir is based upon the United Nations resolutions which was passed in the 60s, the 50s. The struggle in Kashmir is so strong today that independent Indian writers, Indian columnists, for example, Arundhati Roy, have told India, have made statements that Kashmir is no more a part of India. When you have 500,000 or 600,000 forces in a small part of India, which is called Kashmir, when they expect the freedom fighter, when the Indian forces go into a village and they say that there are 2 or 3 people hold out here who are freedom fighters, or in their language militants, the whole village comes out to defend them. This is remarkable. India is using pellet guns against children, against women, against everybody, and the number of injuries in the eyes, and the world is ignoring it. That is where I am surprised. You know, the principles on which democracies have been formed are being falsified in this manner, and in the manner when governments do not rise for human rights. India may be living in a false hope regarding the future that it is a superpower. You can't become a superpower by encroaching upon the rights of people. And let me tell you, people can never be suppressed. The Jews living in Europe were not suppressed, could not be suppressed, despite millions being killed. The Palestinians living in Gaza, in Palestine, they cannot be suppressed. A child comes out of the mother's womb, and as soon as it is able to pick up a stone, it picks up a stone and throws it at the aeroplane. So you cannot suppress people anywhere. That's the logic which is gone, past, cannot happen, cannot continue.
A former president sitting in this office in 2008 said that Pakistan will be adhering to NFU, no first use of the nuclear weapons. Is that the policy of the presidency under Arif Alvi as well?
I believe that Pakistan, the nuclear weapons which Pakistan has are for peace. The Pakistan kept them as a deterrence. We believe that with a belligerent country right across the border who cannot be trusted as far as Pakistan is concerned, has not been trusted, is not even ready to have dialogue on international forums like SAARC. Every time a meeting is scheduled for SAARC, India somehow biggles out of it. So I believe that Pakistan is a peaceful nation, no intention of using its nuclear weapons.
So under new Pakistan, is the blame game going to subside, and is there going to be constructive dialogue on Pakistan's part, or are we going to see more of the same?
As far as international relations?
As far as relations with India are concerned?
No, we are very positive. I think the 2 positive steps have been taken by the Prime Minister. One was requesting a meeting on the sides of the United Nations. That was rejected. No reason to reject it. And they picked up excuses which were the news which was about a month or 2 months old, which when our government was not even there. Then opening up the Sikh corridor. So Pakistan has been making positive gestures, doing practical measures, and Pakistan is showing the will that it wants peace with India. It is for India to pick it up.
Let's move on towards China. You mentioned China. China is Pakistan's biggest trading partner now. The CPEC corridor which was at $43 billion, is now evolved into a 62 and even further $62 billion project. How trustworthy is an ally like China, and especially when it comes to doling out cash for a country like Pakistan, where you've seen the Belt and Road Initiative, aftermath of the Belt and Road Initiative in places in Africa. For Sri Lanka had to give up a port to keep up with its payments to China. So how confident are you that China is a trustworthy ally for Pakistan?
Pakistan and China have been true good friends. I don't remember a single episode over our history and China's history where we have had any misgivings about any action which has happened. What has happened, what you've mentioned in Africa and South America, when you have corrupt governments, it is quite possible that some investments may have been covered by corruption. Some countries have taken back priorities with changing governments. That can always happen. That is a negotiable thing, like Sri Lanka you mentioned. That's like Malaysia. That is an open thing. This is a venture which is profitable to China, and it is a venture which is profitable to Pakistan.
And before coming to power, your own government had reservations about this corridor as well, right? You wanted to renegotiate.
No. We never had reservations. No, we are on record. We never had reservations, but we always say that corruption should not be a part of any deals which may happen. So that's what our insistence is, and that's what China's insistence is also.
So what is Pakistan's principled position when it comes to the issue of human rights in China, for instance, which have been condemned by the United Nations and other world organizations, and particularly this new issue of up to 1 million Muslims in northern China being taken to detention camps, and being China says that these are camps for restructuring and rehabilitating people. What is Pakistan's position on these Muslims in particular?
Pakistan's position is with the government of China. Pakistan believes that these bogies are raised whenever any government is being pressurized, whether it's Pakistan or China. I think our government's policy is that it's an internal matter of China if there is something like that happening, and I believe we trust the Chinese government to take care of its own people in the best manner.
Right. Let's talk about the money that has been coming from China. You touched upon the economy earlier. There have been a lot of reservations from international organizations. Christine Lagarde, for instance, wants Pakistan to raise gas prices even further. The IMF wants Pakistan to devalue its currency against the dollar. There's a lot of constraints. The United Nations pressuring Pakistan, saying that it wants to stop payments because it feels that it will go towards
United States.
United States, saying that it will go towards repaying Chinese loans.
They're not yet synonymous.
But that is what you're up against, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's a very tricky situation where you need the money, but the money that is coming in from one of your very important partners is putting off others which you will inevitably need.
What countries may be objecting to is a very close relationship with China. I think that is not at the cost of any other country. I think our relationship with China is bilateral. I don't think it is geared against India, for example, or geared against any other country. And I believe the world should also look at it as a bilateral relationship of friendship between us and China.
On the issue of Afghanistan, Pakistan has been making headway towards getting the Taliban on the table with other parties, and your foreign minister has had a tour of 4 countries. He's heading towards Qatar, we believe, as well. How confident are you that Pakistan will be able to bring the Taliban to the negotiating table? And is it in Pakistan's interest that Afghanistan becomes stable rather than keeping its influence on the Taliban on the border?
We believe very strongly that in a peaceful Afghanistan, number one. Number two, we may have a certain influence on some of the Taliban, and we have insisted that they come onto the table, and they have agreed in certain areas to come on the table.
We might see Arif Alvi at the end of your tenure. What are your biggest fears, and what do you think are going to be your biggest achievements while you hold this office?
Pakistan cannot become a developed country in 5 years, but I would like to see Pakistan on the road to change with the maximum of achievements, with our people satisfied that things are happening, improve all other sectors, improve our exports, improve our economy. I think we are set on the road to Naya Pakistan.
Mr. Arif Alvi, the President of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.